Afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? I see people trickling in still. Hi. I love that energy. It's what I don't even know what time it is. It's almost 4. You got that energy? If you don't know me, you didn't meet me in the beginning. My name is Daniel Atkinson. I'm the manager of public programs here at the MCA. Thank you. I got a couple of fans. I appreciate that. I'm going to just introduce this panel. I'm going to be really quick. This is resourcing and regeneration, solidarity economies for the now. So how do we make this happen financially? This conversation, moderated by Marz Lovejoy, brings together practitioners who are intimately involved in the design and operation of solidarity economies for the present, with special consideration paid to the artists and culture workers who are most affected by our current administration's defunding actions. You know, all of this stuff. They consider what it takes to meaningfully sustain the work of artists over time. A few words about each of them who will be on stage. Nadia Elokdah is an urbanist and design strategist with more than a decade working at the intersection of public systems and cultural practice. She currently serves as vice president and director of programs at Grantmakers in the Arts. Cate Fox is the director of Ambitious. Ambitious is the Center for Cultural Innovation's national pooled fund program that invests in alternative economic paradigms and fresh social contracts in ways that artists and cultural communities can achieve financial freedom. Marz Lovejoy is an artist, community caretaker, and cultural strategist born in the Midwest and raised on both coasts. She's a queer mother of 3 and a multidisciplinary cultural worker whose identity was shaped by the dynamism of creative and civic scenes globally. Sruti Suryanarayanan is an artist organizer with Art.coop, a collective that exists to grow an arts culture movement rooted in solidarity by centering artists and cultural workers, making systems change irresistible. Based in Brooklyn, New York, they build systems that help people channel their culture to resist the dominant systems of racial, economic, and migration inequity. And now if you can please join me in welcoming them all to the stage.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for that. Okay, I'm just gonna start us off with a few words before we get into it. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this conversation and space of action. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge a few people, places, and practices. I would like to speak life into the names of my elders and newly acquired ancestors and guardian angels. To my great Aunt Jan and my great Uncle Kenny, who passed away within the last 2 weeks. To the incredible artist and director and friend, Diane Martel. To our fierce and revolutionary shepherd, Mama Assata Shakur, who paved a way for so many of us. To my younger sister and best friend, Mariana, who continues to teach me so much beyond the physical. And to my small and mighty tribe at home with my children, my babies, watching the children, allowing me to be here to do this work. I am also here to acknowledge this occupied land, those of the native folks, Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi, excuse me, Potawatomi, please.
Potawatomi.
Thank you. And all the other tribal nations. I am here to honor the immigrant communities and populations that are being rounded up and kidnapped. I am here to honor every life taken due to greed, evil, and corruption, genocide. I am here to represent Black midwifery, traditional and indigenous midwifery. Folks pushed to the margins, those unable to be here but still doing the work. Those incarcerated, locked down, left out. I honor you, my people, our people, places, and practices. And to all of you here, and what you bring. Thank you for being here and showing up. I truly hope this is an opportunity to get to know each other and to do. So with that, we're here talking about solidarity economies. And before I was asked to moderate this panel, I had never heard of this term. But after reading about it, I realized this is the practice that I was born into. And so with that, I would love to speak to you all about how you define solidarity economies. Who are you in solidarity with? Do they know they're in solidarity with you? And really just trying to, understand how language is being assigned and what the actions behind the language is. So thank you, and we can kick it off.
I guess I'll jump in. Yeah, the work of solidarity is how you show up with other folks and the ways in which you listen and the ways in which you take action together. One of the things that you were just sharing about how you were born into this solidarity mindset, I think a lot of us were born into spaces that encourage that kind of care for one another and connection. It's really hard these days because we feel so separated from each other, which is an intentional act, by the way, to separate us from each other, that we are really here to care for one another, to be in service to one another, to work together to create things, and to steward this wonderful planet that we have. And so I'm in solidarity with other cooperators, other people who are so committed, who have a political analysis about how to show up. And yeah, I mean, it's a really great question. I think people define solidarity in lots of different ways. So I'm curious how you all define it.
Hello, thank you. We talked a little bit about this earlier today, and we were like, vibing. And I think one of the things that Sruti actually said was, I also came from an immigrant community, living here, and solidarity in that community was really because of a need for survival. And we were speaking about how that is very common, and that was a condition of the context we were in. It's also not actually the tradition of where solidarity comes from in our cultural practices, that we have rootedness in solidarity that's actually related, that has nothing to do with survival in a hostile or oppressive or capitalistic system, but that it's about the value we see in each other and our relationship to anything living. And that there's some rootedness in all of us that exists. And so regardless of the community that we're coming from, we can see the braiding of that in how we connect. And to pull, to your point, Kate, I think to pull, to lift that up and to sort of name, like, I'm here to be a cooperator, can bring that out in others, which I think is sort of a grounding. And then to the question of who am I in solidarity with and do they know it? That the juxtaposition of those questions makes me think about, like, do we know each other? Yeah. You know, and like the orientation, there's been such really fascinating conversation today, and I am also a recovering architect in this work, and do not practice architecture, but carry with me all of these contexts of, like, who are the people in the spaces? Who are we designing for? How are we moving? All these questions are always in my mind. And I think about how we're intentionally separated in the contemporary systems insofar that it's hard to know each other. And so it's hard to be in solidarity with people who don't immediately appear as though we are the same. And so our work is to, I think, in the idea of like solidarity economies and solidarity labor, is to say like we are different and we are similar, and let us know each other so we can be grounded in those traditions that far surpass the contemporary moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, going back to who we started by bringing into this room at 11 a.m., it's aunties and uncles that I feel like I'm in solidarity with. And, you know, aunties and uncles got shit too. Like, they're not perfect people. I am misgendered by my favorite aunties and uncles, and I still love them, and I'm still in solidarity with them, but it's this act that Andres and I were talking about, critical questioning and critical compassion. It's through this, you know, active reckoning with what does it mean to be compassionate to somebody in your community, and to hold them to a place of respect and growth with a critical lens. That feels really important. And so aunties and uncles, and then Nadia, earlier we were talking about 7 generations, right? That wisdom of, when we talk about Asata and we talk about other folks who have laid the fabric on which we lay and we rest and we cry and we re-energize, those people were building this world for us, and we need to think about who we're building the world for, but also in the footsteps of, the paths of. So 7 generations back, 7 generations forward. I mean, maybe the hybrid B, but definitely the aunties and uncles of yesterday and tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. And hearing you all speak and answer, I'm wondering if you can talk and tell us all a little about your practices and how you're practicing solidarity, and then what's working, what isn't working, you know, because when we've talked about this, and those who know me and those, you know, of you who are just getting to know me, I am very about that action. And I think now more than ever, we don't have time, like, we have to, it's really pressing, and I can speak for myself, I feel it in a way of survival, in a way that's keeping me, how do I keep moving? How do I keep moving forward? And so that action is so important to me, and how it's being done. And so can you maybe just talk a little bit about what you're doing, what's working, what's not working?
Do you want to talk about Basque country? I feel like it's really exciting.
I could. Well, I actually have a question for all of you. How many of you feel like our economic system is working? Go ahead, applaud. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. And how many of you feel like we should spend the bulk of our resources trying to fix this system? Yep, nobody's clapping, okay? So there's no question, this room is clearly on board, which is super exciting. But lots of people are not. And so we have this tension right now about whether we're thinking about trying to make a bad system that's getting worse, less bad, I don't know, whatever that word is. Or we can actually invest in new systems that have a different set of values at their core. So the work that we do at Ambitious, at the Center for Cultural Innovation, is really about new systems. And by new systems, I just mean they are oftentimes using ancestral technology, but they are newer ways of organizing outside of financialized capitalism. And so we invest in builders who are building those new economies, culture bearers, and creatives. And we recently took them on a trip to the Basque Country in Spain, to Mondragon, which is a large cooperative structure, to look at regional economic systems that have a different set of values at their core. To demonstrate and to consider what are the enabling factors for large-scale economies that really work for labor as well as for economic benefit. And yeah, I mean, it was a really incredible experience. We took the grantees and funders and scholars on this journey so we could all learn together. And it works, you know? It's not perfect, and we shouldn't idolize these kinds of systems, but the solidarity economy works, and it can work at scale. I think a lot of times funders get all caught up about, oh my gosh, well, this will never scale. This will never reach as many people as a Walmart, but it's not designed to be that. You know what I mean? Like, that's the wrong starting point, P.S. That's the wrong starting point. And so the value of these solidarity systems is really how accountable they are and how they're self-directed, they're directed by the people who are most affected, and they're creating outcomes that are not just about financial well-being, but they're about holistic well-being. Not everyone. Just because it's a cooperative does not necessarily mean it's mutualistic. So there's a political analysis that goes along with that as well. But I'll just pause there because you all have solidarity experiences to share.
Oh my goodness, okay. Well, so there's a couple people that I'm really thinking of in this moment. One is an artist, educator, agitator named Chris Myers, who is an actor, used to run this group called Anti-Capitalism for Artists. Chris would really talk about solidarity as things that we already know how to do, right? But when we talk about the solidarity economy, it's about using that framework of solidarity to change our ways of relating with each other through resources, right? And not just financial resources, but resources of time, space, labor, love, all of those things. And then I think about Mike Strode, who is in and around the Midwest, and runs this amazing market called the Offers and Needs Market, which is a tool that we've used at Art.coop to, with our fellows, with community partners, to just think about what are the elements of the economy, what are the elements of the world that we already have, that we've inherited, that we need to maintain a relationship with or want to maintain a relationship with, and then how are we going to change how that relationship takes place, right? So for example, like maybe I can offer, you know, a tutorial on how to use Google spreadsheets. And what we want to figure out is, how do I offer that tutorial, right? Do we do it in person together? And then in exchange, right, what do I need? Maybe I need support with childcare. And so then we do that kind of contextual, right? It's specific to the two people involved in the exchange.
The bargaining.
Yeah, and the bartering too.
The bartering.
Yeah,
That's the word
yeah.
I was looking for. Thank you. The bartering.
It's different for each community,
Yes.
and we can't, like, it's not a one solution fits all, but we can still be aligned centrally. And I think with Mondragon and then Emilia Romagna in Italy, right, there are a lot of different options and ways to think about how solidarity exists at a local, regional, national, international, interstellar way that we should engage.
Yeah. And real quick before, just to synthesize some of that, you know, and to bring, because I'm somebody who's like, okay, a lot of great things were said. What's the like small to-do, like, you know, not small, but like very large, but what's a to-do list? So something like, this is me kind of synthesizing through my own process, like mutual aid, you know, and like, you know, or susus, which are, you know, you get together with your people, okay, every month somebody puts $20 in the bucket, then if somebody needs that money at the end of the month or however, then we have these types of things. And so I think that goes along with the bartering and the, you know, real tangible ways that we can start to take these practices and like make them as indoctrinate them how Amazon has been indoctrinated onto us, and undo. Somebody, or when we were talking, said like the uncoupling or like and recoupling, and I love that. Just to, yeah. So I just wanted to like start,
I love a list.
I love a list.
And I love, sometimes I'll like have a whole list on my day and I'll get none of it done, but I've done a whole bunch of stuff, so I'll go write it down so I can cross it off.
Yes.
Right? Because
and I think that's another very tangible practice.
But take the tip. You matter. I really appreciate that, and what I'm hearing as we're talking is like, what are we acculturated to, right? And I'm taking that from John A. Powell from the Othering and Belonging Institute in the Bay Area. What are we acculturated to is the norm, the thing that we're used to, the thing that we are steeped in, and we don't always realize that it's the culture that we're in, and that there are many cultures, there's many ways of being, and that we have to do the unlearning of what we've been acculturated to, right? We've clearly unlearned that neoliberal capitalism is going to save us, right? Obviously in this room. But then we have to now be acculturated to something else. And so in my work, what sort of the work hat I'm wearing while I'm here, we really talk about sort of two pillars of liberation, our cultural and economic self-determination. And we need to have both of those. One of them, talking about economies separate from the culture that we live in, doesn't fix us, and vice versa. Cultural liberation without economic liberation also doesn't fix us, because those things are woven. And if we think about, how deeply embedded racism is with capitalism, right? Like, we can't unweave that and just take one thread and think we're gonna fix that. So I think those are some of the pillars those are the two pillars we organize around, and what that looks like tangibly is that we have spent a lot of time, so my interface in this work is really through funders. We've talked about philanthropy, we've talked about, the public funders, municipalities, a little bit on the stage today, and sort of like, what is their role, how do they show up, what kind of power do they bring? And I really appreciate you bringing this in, Cate, this political analysis. There's a lot more to what a funder brings to a room than a check, right? They're bringing in validity of who else they see, and doing the work of defending and justifying and amplifying the work that's happening on the ground. And if they spend their time sharpening and even acknowledging that they're not neutral, you have a political analysis that you need to bring into every room that you walk in, and that's your service. That's who they're in. That's how they show their solidarity, right? That's the thing. And so what we've started doing is bringing in folks who spend a lot of their practice in organizing, in campaigning, in base building, to the work of funders. You are not absent of the political climate you exist within, so let's learn the skills. How do you show up in this room and understand what your placement is and what it could be? And I'm thinking a lot about our last talk, right? About what's possible, what's probable, what's desired. I'm using the wrong words, forgive me, but like that, right? And we have to shape that. So that's a little bit about it. I have something else to say, but I feel you.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, and for you to clarify, when you say we, can you clarify who you mean?
Gosh, I think I said a lot of we's.
So when you're saying we, talking about funders, and because I think that's really, because we do. I'm a student midwife, and I work with Black and Indigenous midwives, and I would say all of them are stressed beyond. They're undersupported. There's, and we're talking about building futures, and that is directly linked to the folks who are bringing the babies in, and who are actually bringing that, the physical, the time and the care, and so I'm wondering, when you talked about funders and the validity and the defending and the justifying, because so often it's us, it's the people, right? It's that we're the first ones to have to do this, because we understand the importance. We understand how it straddles survival in that way. And so I would love to hear just about what, the we is. We need funders to understand that, no, we need you to support this cause, and here is why. Aside from, let's put a whole bunch of money into, AI.
Yeah, yeah. Who are the we? There's a lot. There's many. I think one of the challenges that shows up when we're talking about philanthropy, and Sruti and Cate also interface in philanthropies in different. We come from different perspectives, so this is really exciting. I want to hear what you have to say. But in my job is to ask critical questions of funders and to, I think, highlight opportunities to think differently about the structures that we are within, and to push. Right? How much discomfort can you tolerate inside of your institution where you're not kicked out, because that doesn't help either, but that you cannot keep people complacent. And so I think that the we's that we're talking about are, anybody who has influence in a situation of power is a person who should be in this conversation. And power can look like money, right? It can be like, I have a discretionary fund and I'm gonna do something with it and then talk to folks about why I did that. I think it can also be, there's, right now, I think the intro to this panel was like, artists and cultural workers and communities are in crisis because federal funding is being dramatically under attack. And part of that is that I think the narrative and the we who are enacting that right now understand the pervasive effect of culture in how it moves. So some of the first things that we're gonna attack are cultural movements, are the ideas of what's allowed, are the things that acculturate us to what is normal and possible and should be, because if we can control that narrative, then we can really limit the space of possibility, right? And so the we's who show up, I think, any kind of power that you hold, to be organized in solidarity with that future is, I think, who we're talking about. And it's beyond the silos, right? I spend so much time with cultural funders. They have a portfolio, they have a silo, but there's so many people who are doing that work who fund in education or health, or we have to sort of really, I think, knock down the structures that we think we operate within. But we have to be strategic about it, because too much disruption too fast could make us all, moot in this conversation, and then we can't build for 7 generations in the future.
I think it's the strategy part is so important. And I think, just while you're talking, I'm like, okay, we're talking about the bartering, right? And what, there's somebody in the audience who can offer this, I can offer that. And then there's this other part of the funding and the balance. Do we need one more than the other? How do we continue on when the government funding isn't coming through? And I think, I think I don't have an answer, but I do have, some practices that I've been involved in, and I think that's the point, right? One of them.
Yeah, and sure, the government is cutting funds now, but the government didn't fund our people for a long time. And we've been surviving.
Absolutely.
And thriving beyond that. And so that's part of what we remember. And so one of our teammates recently had a child, and she, in prep, we were like, oh my God, do you want to have a baby shower and we'll celebrate you? And she was like, no, don't do that. And we asked her, what would you like? And she said, well, I think that helping me do meal prep would be great, but then also I need soft things that I can give to this lovely child that we're welcoming in. And I also need help cleaning the house. And so I think of all of this work, right? The government isn't gonna recognize Ebony in any other way, maybe just as another demographic to track, but we as community members can recognize her and know exactly what seed she is planting and growing and nurturing, and we can take care of her as the gardener and take care of that seedling. And so I feel like that's the action, right? Is keep track of in your community all of the people who are planting seeds, figure out what resources they need. And it's not just financial, right? It is love and it is care. And those are things that all of us can offer, not to the assholes. But who knew? But I think like getting out of that scarcity mindset feels really, really, really important, because when we keep fighting over scraps that the government, again, has not given our people for a really long time, we bite each other in the butt. Like, that doesn't help. Instead, if we think about the abundance that we do have and give energy to that, that'll grow and allow us to actually build an economy around that abundance, around that energy, a solidarity economy.
Yeah, this work is intensely personal. Like, we're sitting up here on the stage, but really, I mean, we are all in this together, literally. And one of the things that going to Mondragon and going to Emilia-Romagna reminded us is that it's not like there's something special in the water over there, you all. Like, they recognize that the decision to have ownership and agency over one's life is an individual one. I want to show up as a cooperator. And it's an acknowledgement that our fates and our destinies are intertwined. And when you make that intensely personal decision to say, I want to be in this with other people, I don't know, there's a attractive force to that. And you find yourself in places over and over again. I know this has been true in my career, where I'm constantly organizing with people, whether that's what I call it, that's the term I'm using, or it's just, oh, I hear this person has a concern and I know that person over there has a similar concern. And it is natural for us to want to organize. And the scariest thing to financialize capitalism and to the individualism mantra that it preaches is us coming together. So when we talk about the list, our little agenda for ourselves, the first thing you can do, you have control over. You can say, I want to do this, and then look for those places. Philanthropy is not going to be the place we go for systems change work solely, okay? That's not going to happen. Certainly not going to be the government. But you know who I trust? I trust my neighbors. That economic change that we want to have happen, the one that centers dignity for design, that's going to come from the grassroots up. It's going to come from local pressure and local demonstration of how we're in relationship with each other. So let's decide that. Let's decide to be in relationship with each other towards that self-determination and cultural determination that we all deserve.
Yes, thank you. I like that. Thank you for all of you and I think, you know, that is a great segue into what I have right here, which are 2 notepads for each side of the room and some pens, and to invite everyone who's here to write your name down, your email, something that you can offer if you feel comfortable doing it, because again, now is the time. And so if I could have, maybe, can I just like grab one of I can I hand you this? And we can pass it over. You wanna? Okay, here, hold on, I got you. One second. I'm gonna pass a couple
Go
pens.
Marz, go Marz.
Thank you. And just to invite, and I'll put an email thread together, and just to see what could happen, what could become of this, because we're here right now, and it's clear that a lot of us are have some similar threads. I'm gonna come back up and join y'all. But what else? How much time do we have? Do we
have another 20 minutes.
New? Do we know?
Well, so Kate, you were talking about
20 minutes? Oh, beautiful.
All right, so Kate, you were talking about philanthropy. All right. So one of the things that I love to think about with philanthropy is I like the term sugar daddy a lot because it invites me to think about what the relationship is.
Sugar auntie.
Sugar auntie, sugar daddy, sugar whoever the fuck. And because I do think that like it's new in Theaster when they were speaking last night, right? They talked about no money is pure, clean, and we need money. So if y'all got money, put it in the community. And I think that like we need to, there is, I think especially right now with everything going on, most of our communities have been used to not having government money, but other communities are not used to having their government money taken away from them. And so they're agitated. And so what do you do to channel their resources, which are different from the resources that our communities have, into our communities' projects? And I feel like that is, there's some interesting work there in terms of who you're in solidarity with. And I don't know how y'all think about our roles as like, I don't know, liaisons between two different types of solidarity.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. Because I'm interested, because I'm here, but a lot of my homies aren't in this room. And a lot of the people that I work with on a day-to-day are not, they don't have, they're not in these spaces. And often, when there's museum talks and art talks, and so being able to invite folks in, and then also to have messengers and to have teachers, each one teach one, like it's a practice that we've been doing. And so to continue, I think, Theaster posed the question, like, what are you doing personally? I think it's a very fair question. And I want to know too. That's why I put out the notebook. Come on, let's do it then.
Collective wisdom. Right?
Yeah.
I would just, so I work at a nonprofit funding intermediary structure, which is just a very fancy way of saying bigger funders give us money and then we give out the money, okay? I did work at a very large, well-known foundation for many years before I shifted into this intermediary role, because I recognized that I'm a funder organizer. Like, that is a place that I really, I was gonna say love, but maybe find myself in. Maybe both things. And I think you have a similar role. And I really see it as a responsibility for those of us who are in those positions to go out and to have those conversations when we think about the world builders that we're funding, people who are truly remaking systems within their communities. They don't have time to go and, talk to this funder in this city at this time. It's a lot easier for me, who can translate between some of those communities, to say, I'll take this. Like, let this be my job. And so one of the things that we did for an organization, an indigenous organization that had the opportunity to purchase not only land but mineral rights for a very large cache of graphite, which is a really important metal for our EVs and all of our new technologies. They had done an incredible amount of fundraising just by themselves, but they were really tired and they didn't know who else they could go to. And so I said, you know what? We don't have it. We're tiny, but we have relationships, and let's go see what we can do. So we worked with another funding structure to put a call out to individuals of high net worth, and also to other institutions, to raise $1.8 million by a deadline that was just weeks away. But the opportunity was so important for this community to be able to not just have the access to their ancestral territory, which is huge, but to be able to control their waterways, so as not to have their village polluted by runoff from these really extractive mining structures. So in doing some of that work and really organizing other funders around this particular opportunity, we were able to do it. We were able to help them raise. They were off the grid because they had a funeral to attend to. When they logged back in, the money had been raised and they were able to secure the land. It's amazing. Oh my God, it was so amazing. And that's just one organization. There are so many very worthy organizations to do that work for. And so it can't just be, this is not the answer, but it suggests that there's a larger systems issue when we have to do that kind of work. But in this meantime, we have to do that kind of work. We got to show up in those places and to talk to funders who are not used to the kind of, whether it's the kind of system that people are designing, or it's, the words that people are using are unfamiliar, doesn't fit neatly within the theory of change. It doesn't fit I don't know if any of you have had the experience of it doesn't fit my funding category, but the work of systems change doesn't fit a funding category. Like, it isn't, you can't just do it in workforce. You can't just do it in arts and culture. You can't just do it in economic development. It is something that crosses every area, which is why it can't just be us doing it. It's got to be everybody doing it and advocating for it. That was a lot, sorry.
No, thank you.
Can I jump in, Marz?
Absolutely, please.
Thank you for the prompt and for the response, Kate. And I'm thinking about, like, who's doing and what are they doing? And I always feel like really uncomfortable with that question because I feel like I used to do stuff. And now I'm in a role of organizing people who do stuff. But I'm gonna tell you, that panel that we had earlier this morning made me feel good because I was like, yeah, I'm doing the thing for someone else to do the thing, right? So we all have a place.
Yeah, you
And I'm working through that insecurity. But we were, right before we got on stage, we were talking about Deepa Iyer's work around like the roles for ecosystem change. And that we all have different roles. And part of, I think, one of the challenges is to like understand what roles you're playing in this web. And for me, it always goes back to like, do we know each other? Yeah. Do we understand what we can't all, no human has the capacity to do all the roles all the time and all the things, right? And so understanding how we are, I'm gonna go back to like the art part of this panel, like, right? Like how are we choreographed to do this work, right? How are we to be in community and in solidarity also means that we're sort of moving independently and together all at the same time, right? We're a chorus, and so if somebody needs to rest, the sound still goes on, and then you can come back and be nourished, et cetera. But what it's making me think of in terms of the doing, I want to make sure I say this, is I had the immense privilege of getting to be the editor and the producer of this amazing series, podcast mini-series that you should all check out. It's called For the Love of Radical Giving. It's at loveradicalgiving.com. Check it out, it's amazing. And it's 6 episodes, and it talks about, it interviews people who are doing the things, who are asking the questions, and who are really telling the stories about how they're working within, without, and against. And you need all of those things, right? We need to be pushing inside of, we need to be pushing against, and we need to be able to operate outside of the structure altogether, right? Like, philanthropy can in no way make up for the massiveness of federal funding that's been gone. That's an impossible gap to close. And individual wealth blows philanthropy out of the water, right? So we need to think about and understand the architecture of the system that we're all inside of, and then what are the opportunities and pockets. And so I'm thinking about, I have 2 sort of things in contrast in my mind. In the first episode, which is called Decolonizing Philanthropy, we interview this amazing thinker named Vu Le. If you're not familiar with his work, please check him out. He's at Nonprofit AF. Yes, thank you, CCF. Pacific Northwest, and he says, you know, like, okay, imagine you're a funder, and Martin Luther King Jr. comes to you and is like, I have a dream, and I want you to fund it.
Yes.
If you were in your role as a funder right now, you'd be like, okay, so like, my questions back to you are, how is this scalable? How do we show system change impact within the funding cycle of 18 to 24 months? Who are we benefiting? You can't spend money on food. How are you gonna do that? Is singing a strategic practice? Is that like is that how, what about voter registration? Okay, right, like this is absurd, right? But we can laugh about that because we understand sort of what that means. And so in contrast, in the second episode, for example, we talk about giving circles. And giving circles is sort of like a institutionalized name for all the things that we've always known. Susus and zakat and all of these traditions that are rooted in these cultural ways of knowing and being in solidarity that predate whatever the heck these structures are that we're navigating. And so I think about those two stories together. Check out the podcast, that's awesome. As to like, we can do the humorous analysis of what's absurd about right now, but we can also look back 7 generations or look forward 7 generations and say, like, we actually also know what we need, and we can just do it. And so I think that's also the thing. It's like, so, you know, like, okay, if my job isn't the doing, but my job is to help the people do the doing, then I have to be able to help amplify those stories in a world in which the attention economy is so exhausting. And that we all need to be able to parse out, like, what am I giving my attention to? I don't want to sometimes I do. Sometimes I want like popcorn, trash TV, and I just need to veg out. But really where I want most of my time is like with the people doing the thing, with the artists who are shaping the, you know, the organizing practices of a community to get a new person elected to, you know, disrupt the strategies. I'm based in New York City, and it's a really interesting time in New York around, we have, you know, our elections start like next week, and there's just like the cultural campaign to really disrupt this sort of status quo is really exciting to see, and that artists and communities are not left out of that process. And I want to pay attention to that. And I want us all to pay attention to that and think about if that's what the economy that we have access to, how do we make sure that that's growing?
Amazing. And I also think, because the work is lifelong and it's exhausting, and sometimes it's devastating. Sometimes it is just purely devastating and tragic. And one thing that Andres, when he was up here, he was talking about, he was doing his individual work and how important that also is, and how important it is to come to a space like this and get filled up rather than feel like you're exhausted. And so I really do also want to take a moment to thank Deem and the Rebuild, and even, you know, MCA for going along and hosting us. But, you know, but really, you know, the people who have, who are helping build these spaces so everybody in here can come and like hopefully feel inspired and hopefully get some clarity and hopefully be able to connect in ways that is not just like, oh, I came to do this thing, but like you get to, you know, have a moment and spend some time with each other, because I know for me, all the jobs and roles that I have, you know, it does take a lot to, even just from Minneapolis, it takes a lot to even go to the airport. It takes a lot to get out of the bed and do the thing and make sure that everybody's taken care of and all these things. But when you land in a space that is offering so much to fill you up, now I can take this energy that I have. So thank you for, you know, being a part of that. And I can take and I can go back and I can do this hard, exhausting work. So I fully agree that it's, I love the within, without, and against that you mentioned.
I think what you're saying, right, it's when we think about this as just like, what can I do? It's really fucking overwhelming. Like, I just see the red card that Radha gave us, like it's just that flashing. But we're not alone, right? And there's like, I feel like that's when Kate, you talk about like the choosing to be a cooperator, it's choosing to recognize that you are responsible for the community around you, and they're responsible for you too.
Yeah.
It's the ability to say, you know what, I can't do this right now, and trust that somebody else will do it. They're gonna do it differently than how you would do it, but they're gonna do it in alignment with the community values, because you're all a part of the community. And I feel like that kind of coalition building is really important. Like, each of us can, I guess, start our own nonprofits and fight for $5. Don't. Or we could do it together.
Yeah.
And then we solve the issue of working in a silo. We solve the issue of like, okay, so I'm not an architect, but like, you can't get a bunch of like, textile artists in the room and be like, okay guys, like, figure out the road system. Like, I don't know what we'd do, like embroider. But if we worked with y'all and urban planners and poets, like, we could build a different world.
Yeah.
And we each have wisdom that we need to have in the room, and that we need to learn from other people, and that we need to trust other people to give. And that feels important right now.
Yeah. Thank you. How y'all feeling? Is there, I don't know, maybe, how much time do we have? 5 minutes? Ish? Three-ish? Okay. Is there any, maybe we open it up to, how do you feel about that? Like, is there anything that anybody, I think this is a, no, not a Q&A, but any statements, anything that anybody wants to throw out? Any feelings?
You can't have a solidarity economy conversation without having.
Yeah, that's what. Oh, okay. What's the card?
Oh, yay! Blue card.
Blue card. Oh, you feeling the, okay. And tell us what that reads again.
Hope.
Hopeful and
Yes,
excited.
Cezanne.
I will take
Hope.
that.
Hope.
Thank you. Thank you so much.